You're listening to the Beauty Beyond Bella podcast, powered by Formula Wellness.
Thank you for joining another episode. We're so excited to have you here and watch with us. This wouldn't be available if it wasn't for you. And so, as you know, I'm Dr. Yvette Suarez, board certified, and I have a fellowship in anti-aging and functional medicine, which is where my heart lays. Don't forget to like and subscribe and DM me if you have any questions.
Well, welcome. We're welcoming Fanny today with us. It's so great to have you. Today, we're going to talk about how Bella was talking about bioidentical hormones before it was even a thing, before it was a trend. It was so important for us to be able to be impactful women to make sure they were feeling great inside and out. And so that's how we met. We met by advertising. We were advertising with you, and you had me write some articles about bioidentical hormones. Yeah. At that time, you really didn't know much about it. So what did you think when we started that journey with you?
Well, originally I thought that you were just all aesthetics, right? And so I came to you with just like, hey, why don't you advertise to these neighborhoods that are just around the corner from you, and let's show them what you have available, Botox, fillers, and all this great stuff. But I also knew you had the hormone therapy to offer, and I also knew that not very many people were talking about that, right? It was almost taboo. And I had a friend who was taking these pellets, right? And so I thought maybe we should educate more people, although I wasn't taking any, didn't feel the need to have any of that at the time. Although looking back, I should have, right? Because this need actually came into my life when I had my kids and it was falling apart, but was getting all the wrong advice from all of my doctors, right? Just putting me on Prozac and all this crazy nonsense, which made things worse. But I didn't know that. And so when I saw that you were offering these hormones through Bella, I was like, we got to get the word out. And the articles were amazing. And it was every 3 months and people started talking about it, but not as much as they're talking about it now. So yeah, that's how we got started.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing that, if you think about it, you said something really enlightening, I think, that most people don't realize is that starting earlier when you're starting to feel bad and not waiting till you bottom out, which is, I think, when we see women, when women come in and they're just exhausted and fatigued and they feel like they're so sad, if we could catch that prior to that and not only go through that.
And I think what ends up happening with women, I guess for me at least, we're in our 20s and we're at our peak, right? We're feeling great, we're looking great, and we're not even thinking about the future. We're just be selfish, and we should at the time, right? We're flying solo, and then we have kids. And then our bodies are trying to get back to where we were prior to having kids, and they can never get there. And then time is moving. The clock is ticking. We're getting older, and those hormones are getting worse and worse. And we don't ever stop to think, because now we're wrapped up in life, right? We're busy. We don't ever stop to think, like, how can I fix this? How can I make myself feel better? And instead, we're suppressing emotions. We're taking Prozac. We're taking depression medication, and we're just putting lipstick on a pig, really, is what we're doing, right?
It's true.
And I remember going to a gynecologist once, and he said to me, and he was older than I was. I think I was probably in my early 30s. So he was probably in his 50s. And he said, my wife talks about what happens to her on a month. Like he says, my wife feels like she's got this demon that comes over her, and she's almost watching herself from a third person. And the way she sees herself reacting to different circumstances, she's crying too much, she's getting way too angry, like overreacting. And she's seeing herself in third person and can't understand, why am I reacting that way? He says, so I understand where you're coming from. But at the time, it was because I was with kids and my hormones were jacked up. But now I'm in my 50s, right? And so now I'm that woman who's going through an even harder time. So when I came to you, I was bawling. Like, I remember I walked into the lobby and just started crying. And I just come from another location where I was just kind of bouncing around the neighborhood trying to figure out who could give me the help that I needed. And I went to another location. I didn't like the vibe. I didn't like what they said. It didn't resonate with me. So when it came to you, you almost laughed because you were like, seen this so many times. And then you said, we're going to help you. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. Come on. And you just walked me to the back and you took my blood, and then we were off to the races. And now I see, like, one of your nurses, she just had, I think, her second baby. And she says, as soon as I'm done breastfeeding, she says, I'm going to start doing, something, pellets or injections, whatever it is, hormones. And I just looked at her and I remember thinking, man, I wish that would have been me. Like, I wish I wish I would gotten that type of help. And
this part, it is. And I love that you're so vulnerable and share that, because there's so many women out there. There are so many women suffering because they don't know. They truly believe that you have to be in full menopause and have no period for whatever reason to feel this way. But birth control, having children, all the fluctuations make us crazy. That we don't want to be crazy.
we don't want to be crazy now, right? But we wanna make sure that we fulfilled every role. We want to be a good wife, we want to be a good mother, we want to be a good employee. We want to be good at everything, and everything starts to fall short, right? And then you get this reaction that is just so uncalled for, and everyone's like, "Why are you acting so crazy? Like, why are you acting this way?" And then you're kind of like, "Why am I acting this way?" Right? And it's a big mix of emotions, but at the end of the day, the people that suffer are those that are closest to you, right? Your kids, your husbands, your loved ones, because that's who you're taking out these stupid reactions on, is your closest people.
And they remember who you were before. And that's not the real you.
Right. That's not who you used to be, right? And so that's why I guess it brings me to tears, because I wish that I had been able to get the real help that I really needed, so that I wouldn't have made my family suffer as much as I did.
But you didn't know. And you know what? And you did the very best. And when you couldn't handle anymore, you sought out help. And like you said, there was a lot of people not doing it correctly. And my biggest pet peeve for women is when they go through these changes and they hit anxiety and they hit depression and we can't sleep anymore and we can't focus. The first thing doctors give them is an antidepressant, an anti-anxiolytic, and a drug to sleep.
Yep.
Right? Which causes dementia, causes all these other issues. Yeah. And we're supporting that versus saying, you know what? I can take a step back, really evaluate everything that's going on, and get you back to feeling amazing.
Yeah. I remember so I am originally from Southern California, and my family relocated, my husband and my two boys and I relocated to Missouri, right? Of all places.
No offense, since probably I was.
But my husband's family was there. And so I just figured we're going to get the family support that we need to live there. So I'll be okay, right? But it was different. And that's for a different podcast. But it was different. And I remember when I got there, there were so many things going wrong. Not only were we living in an area that was cold and damp and small, but I didn't have any of my girlfriends around. I didn't have any of my family around. I was a new mom, And I remember I went to a different gynecologist, and he said, "You know what you need?" After getting Prozac, "You know what you need? You need to go to the gym. You need to join the Y and meet some women, get yourself out there, kind of build your community the way you did before, right? Before you moved out here." I was like, "Okay, I can do that." So I joined the Y, and I loved it, right? It gave me this feeling of community that I needed. I met some great ladies. We were all new moms. My boys got to make friends. I was working out. But when that time came around and that demon crept its head, I was back to where I was, before the Prozac.
It's a short solution, right? It's him trying to get you there. And no offense, but I think, most men don't understand that when your wife starts behaving like that, it is not to tell us ever that we're crazy.
No. Or calm down.
Or calm down. Or what's wrong with you? Like, those make that demon come out even more aggressive than just saying, you know what? I have empathy. I can't understand what you're going through, but I know something is changing. Let's go seek something that'll be. We have so many men, which is really kind of interesting right now, that actually send their wives in. And they go, "I need you to scrape my marriage, and I need you to fix her." And I kind of laugh. How could I go? There's nothing wrong with her. She's just off balance. And if we can help her balance again, you're going to have the wonderful wife that you used to have.
It's fantastic.
For me I feel like to save all these marriages that love each other. But I had a woman tell me the other day that she goes, "I actually like my husband now. I didn't realize that it was because I had no hormones that I couldn't stand the sight of him or why he chose
what or to have sex, right? Yeah. We just don't even want to be touched, right? So it really does affect.
It does. And men just take that personally. It doesn't matter that we don't have testosterone and we don't have libido, or they have vaginal dryness and it's too painful. They look at it as an insult that you no longer love me, because men are men.
Yep.
And they require touch. And so they do. They think, and then they start to shun them because they feel inadequate, and it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually have a girlfriend who was, her estradiol was so bad, her eyeballs were dry. Her mouth was dry, her armpits were dry, and of course had vaginal dryness. But it's just wild how it affects every part of the body, right? And I never experienced that, but when she told me that, it blew my mind. That's how bad it is.
But I think people don't realize, like, so everything. So from, when we have no estrogen, everything feels dry. And women wait till those vaginal, dryness. But that's kind of the first sign. Then you start getting everything else. Our skin starts getting more dry. We're getting more wrinkles. Our blood pressure starts to kind of go up little by little as we're getting older. Our cholesterol's going up little by little as we're getting older. And we don't realize that, well, we have no hormones. All the systems start to go down. Yeah. So to see your systems, and you can kind of talk to us a little bit, in 2 years, what happened from you came in and you were always in shape. You were never out of shape, but you had more inflammation. Yeah, but you already started to become insulin resistant. Like, you had all of these poor hormones, poor vitamins, to where I see you today is, yes, quite amazing.
Yeah, I think, like, when I looked in the mirror, I used to see, like, the under my eyes were swollen. I just looked puffy, although I was never really overweight, right? And then I started to do the hormones. And I think one of your ladies said to me, if your hormones are in check, everything else starts to fall into place, right? And it's true. When I look back on my 2-year journey, it's absolutely true, because I started to sleep better. My attitude towards life in general got better. I legitimately was at the point of suicide when I came in 2 years ago. I was so depressed, like so awful, like what I was feeling. And so now I feel like my head is lighter. I can think straight, foggy. I couldn't sit at my computer long enough to really focus. Like, I just felt like hungover all the time, right? Where you just can't focus the next day.
The fogginess.
The fogginess. Then I started to really dive deeper into my health. Besides the hormones, I started to look at, what am I eating? Not that I was eating a lot of junk food, but what's ideal, right? Because if you really look at the cycle that we're in as humans, not just women, but as humans, the cycle that we're in is all because of greed. Food, right? All the preservatives and all the garbage that they're putting into food, right? To make the food last longer, right? To make food more addictive. So then you're buying more. It's all greed, right? It's all driven by greed. So you're buying more and more of this garbage, right? And then you're needing more and more pharma. And so pharma's there with lots of greed to give you what you need, right? And then when you're gone so far down this path of eating garbage and putting all this pharma into your body, and now you're in your 50s, and you're looking at, like, medical insurance, and then the medical providers or insurance providers are like, oh, well, you take this medication, so because you take this medication, we can't cover you, right? But these people cover you, and then this will cost you more money. So it's like a cycle that we're all in, right?
So excited to have you here watching and joining our podcast. It really means the world to me. And I really want to thank you, and also thank our sponsors, Formula Wellness. As you know, I am Dr. Yvette Suarez. I'm a board-certified physician, and I have a fellowship in anti-aging and functional medicine. So please like and subscribe, and DM me if you have any questions.
So if you could break that cycle and really dig deep as to what is causing all of these problems and start to peel back the onion, I think that we end up feeling so much better, not just physically, but mentally. We just come alive, which is where we should be prior to all of this greed coming into play when we were in our 20s. So what was that, like 30 years ago, right? Before all of this, before it was about the garbage in the food, before it was about pharma pushing all this crap on you, right? 30 years ago, we were healthier. And so you really start to peel back the onion. What are you eating? Are you exercising, right? Are you taking time mentally to just disengage, put the phone down, right? There's just so many things that we have pulling at us and dragging us down, I think, in today's day and age that we didn't have some years ago, right?
Well, we live in a world of convenience right now. And so other countries, it's actually less expensive to have healthy food. And it's more expensive in this country to have healthy food, and it's cheap to go buy some fast food. All the fast food restaurants in there, but it's so much easier. And I tell people all the time, when they come in, like you said, and they have that doughiness about their face or they're swollen under the eyes, that's gut health.
Yep.
That's what we ate the night before. That's what we've been eating. That's that processed sugar. Gluten in this country, there's no gluten allergies in Europe, right? It's right. We over glutenize everything to be able to stabilize it. We want things to sit on a shelf for 3 years versus it 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that can get processed in our gut. And so we stuck in inflammation. You see all of our kids these days with terrible allergies. We never had that back in the day, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so I agree with you. I feel like we're in this bad cycle that we can't get about our own way, right? Instead of teaching people the right things. I mean, look at during COVID. If you had a vitamin D level under 40, you were more likely to die. And so if you went to the hospital, you got a vitamin D injection. Why are we not giving everybody vitamin D and optimizing? I was just like this. There's so many things that we can do that our body needs to heal. And that's why we do those comprehensive lab panels. I know people at first are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to go to my primary. But what they don't understand is your primary is going to do 5 tests, and they're not going to look at all the different things. And you just went through the 360 diagnostic, guys. So what you thought about that?
So speaking of the primary, so I went to my primary recently, and I was just wanting to pick her brain without actually telling her what I was thinking. And I said to her, hey, do you ever get people that come in here, or women that come in here, and they're maybe considering taking hormones, or they're maybe taking hormones somewhere else, and they just want to see what you offer and what their thoughts are? And she says, yeah, we have women that we treat here. We don't do any testosterone. She's because it's not approved by the FDA, right? Because that's the pitch. And then she says, and we don't do injections. We definitely don't do pellets because that's not approved by the FDA either. And she says, but we do the creams and we do the patches. And I said, okay, but again, I went back at her because I really wanted to get this particular answer. I said, okay, but when you get women to come in here and they are maybe taking the pellets or taking the injections somewhere else, and they come here because maybe they want to save some money, you want to see if it's available through their insurance, what do you see then? People that switch from that to this. And then she's like, oh yeah, they end up switching back. And that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear, is that what they're providing is not enough, right? And so if you, going back to my 360 diagnostic, right? So if you go to a regular OB, which I done, and they look at your levels for estradiol, for example, and your levels should be between what now?
So normally I'll keep our women between 40 and 80.
Right. And so if you're at 41, they'll say, oh, we're normal. You're ideal. You're 35. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Right. But they won't say, your peak levels should be 60,
Right.
They're like, you're right there. You're fine. You're in the range. That's what you get. All right. They're not looking for peak.
Well, they're not looking for what we call a therapeutic value, right? What is that optimization level, right? If you look at a curve and it's like 75%, and you don't need to be, look, we all practice a little different. And some people practice on a high range. I have some women that feel amazing at 100, but around 40 is when you start having a hot flash at the night sweats. I can't think straight, right? So where's that optimal number for this person? Not for every single woman, right? You're a smaller, more petite girl. Depending on your activity level, we need to adjust how you feel with what your lab shows, not just throw one thing for every single person. We're not all the same. Our activity levels are different, right? What we want, we focus. But I will say, and I know that OBGYNs don't prescribe testosterone, but to me, that's my favorite job. I tell people all the time, if I can sprinkle that a little bit on everyone, we would have a happier place. So at 3 p.m., we start to feel that sluggishness. Right? I always say it's that, I call it the couch potato syndrome, right? You come home, the men's working all day, he can't get up. But women too, we're unfocused, we're foggy. And I used to remember when my testosterone level was low, without remembering why I didn't feel well, I would get a board in my room and I would start writing down all my notes and all my to-do lists. And I would start driving myself crazy. And then someone would remind me I was time for my pellet. And then I go, oh, yeah. And then I would get my pellet and then I would break that down and go, why do we need that? Like, my mind is, we're super sharp. And then so the hour will go, I go, oh my God, I can't remember anything. And it's crazy that I feel like we reinvent ourselves. We reinvent our businesses. We have more time for our family because we're not exhausted trying to sleep or be sad in our room. We're like, what can we do next? Yeah, what are we going to do on our life?
Yes. Yep. It's go, go, go. Go. Like the Energizer Bunny.
And who doesn't love that?
Right. Right. And not usually that person. Right. But I do remember 2 years ago, I was not that person. I was just looking for a place to hide. Right. So when I came to you and we did the diagnostic recently, I wasn't looking at my previous levels. You have. So I was really curious to hear, like, well, how much has it changed, right? And it was really cool. Like, I really felt like we were just like opening Christmas present.
Like you do. She was scoring big on every single one. Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing.
And it was awesome. It was awesome to see all those numbers. And I think when I started my estradiol, that was almost non-existent, right?
It was less 11.
It was Maddox, right?
Nothing.
And then my testosterone, really pumped up my workouts. Yeah, it's awesome to feel so good and have that clarity.
And like you say, we're in our 20s and 30s, and if we went to the gym because we had testosterone and we started working out and eating a little bit clean, all of a sudden we looked great. Like in a matter of minutes, it felt like I went into my sit-ups the next day, I looked great. And then you hit 50 and you can work out for 6 months and you sit there and go, I see no change in that body. And there's nothing worth frustrating that. We tried so hard, we couldn't. All this stuff, but you'll hear women say, I starve myself all the time, which by the way, is not a good idea with no protein as we ate. Yeah, I starve myself. I don't do anything. And yet I have no muscle and I don't feel great. You've been able to maintain a lot of muscle.
Yeah. And in the diagnostic, right? That was really cool. I was bragging to my boys, because everybody, all my boys in my family, they all work out. They all, go to the gym. But I was like, check it out. And they showed them my graph and was like, looks like I got a lot of muscle here. For people in my age group, for females in my age group, I view all these people under the water.
Yeah, so I think I was already in the 90th percentile. And we do, like when we get to that point where we want to maximize and optimize everything we do, like I'm an A girl, right? So I'd rather be in the 90, but if I'm scoring the 60, I feel like I did not do a good job. Yeah. Right? Like we don't want to be at that 60% of the country. We want to be at that 90. We want to be at our pride all the time. And I think people are constrained and they're scared that I'm like, look, we don't have to be 20 forever. But if we can say optimize in our hormone levels, we're going to decrease anxiety, decrease depression, decrease dementia, decrease heart disease, which is the number one reason women die. Why do we not take that opportunity to feel our best?
And speaking of dementia, right? So my mom is suffering from that right now. And I think it was you who told me that if that generation had been treated with testosterone, studies have shown that that generation would have a lot less dementia than they do now.
Full bioidentical hormones. So your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are a triple combo. We've had these 3 hormones all of our lives. So why is it now when we're 50 and we see our OBGYN, they tell us, oh, you no longer need testosterone, right? Why pick 2?
It cause cancer. Really? Right. It didn't cause cancer when I was at my peak in my 20s.
Right. Correct.
So why would it cause cancer now?
So, remember they did that study, the WHI study, which was the Women's Health Initiative, and it was over 20 years ago. And the study was done extremely poorly, number one. Mostly all older women, smokers, they didn't even do bioidentical hormones. And so they launched this study and said, oh, it causes cancer. Yet when you look at the study, estrogen alone, people actually had a reduced risk of cancer. And so they blew this up the wrong way and it became a fear-mongering thing. And so now for the last 20 years, probably 80% of women stopped taking bioidentical hormones that were actually on it. But yet what's happened? We've actually increased our risk of breast cancer. It is now 1 in 7 women all over the world. I see people every day in my practice. And so if that was true and the hormones were causing cancer, we should have had a dramatic decrease, not rise in cancer rates.
Yep.
So they can't explain that.
Yep. And in all along, we've had all these women that could have been seeking help.
Correct.
And instead,
they were guilted into saying, you could potentially be causing cancer. Why would you do that to yourself? And that's really heartbreaking that we would treat women like that and allow them to feel depressed and like something is wrong with them.
Yep.
Not us.
Right. You're just being bitch. Yep. That's it. That was our own solutions. You're just an unhappy bitch,
But you know that in residency, even as an OBGYN, they spend less than a day in bioidentical hormones. Probably a 3-hour course is what we learn in a 4-year.
Is that a lot? And nutrition too, right, Jeshington? Yeah, you don't spend much time doing nutrition either, right? And then for men, what did we come up with for men? We came up with Viagra.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Good for them. Right?
What did you do for women? Right. Nothing. Because women, we don't need libido. No, it's not important for us to have a sexual drive. It's not important for us to feel feminine again. That's becomes, oh, you're older now. You have children. Why does that matter?
Yep.
Right. But we know that in a healthy relationship, that becomes part. And that's what calls you not to get divorced. You think that your husband, after time you say no to him for 5 years. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's going to work out long term. Right. Maybe. But I think with an 80% divorce rate, I bet you a lot of it has to do with the hormones.
Yeah. And along the same route, if you were a female that was constantly taking care of yourself, working up, peak shape, taking care of yourself aesthetically, and you have a husband who completely ignores you, right? Doesn't see you, you're invisible, or a ghost. After a while, 5 years of that for a female, it's like, okay, how long do you think this marriage is going to last, right? So men need their ego stroked in one way, women need it in a different way. So, if women are working so hard at making sure that they still look good, then, men also have the responsibility of giving credit where credit is due.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely think that bioidentical hormones is, I'm going to call it a team sport, meaning that when I treat one of the partners, the other partner typically gets treated within the next 2 years.
And aligned it. Yeah, because you can't have it all found, yes.
Absolutely. You really can't. And particularly the other way. If you treat a man and you make him feel powerful again and feel like he wants to have sex, he wants to reinvent his life, he has this part. People literally, I had a woman tell me once, I think that causes people to have affairs. I said, absolutely not. If you fix both of the part of the couples, you are now a powerful couple like you used to be.
Yeah.
You're wanting to do things together. You're traveling again. It's when one of you is always saying no, or I'm too tired, or leave me alone, or I can't stand you, and you're grumpy, the other person starts to look at that, but that's not the woman I fell in love with.
I think if you're tying having the affairs to treatment, it's that affair was already happening before the treatment came out, right? I think it pulls people together, right? And that conversation with men taking testosterone and getting hormone therapy, that's also become mainstream. And I think I first started to hear that and see that with Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Yeah, he made it like it's not a big deal for us. A lot of people are taking Dana White. Like there's a lot of high profile people that are taking men that are taking this treatment to feel the way they felt that back. It doesn't mean that you're taking steroids. That's a completely different animal, right? But just to have that extra lift in men that they also used to have back in the day. There's nothing wrong with it.
But men were used to be really embarrassed about talking about that. I remember when they would come in for a consult, their first comment to me is, I'm fine in the bedroom. And I go, you know what, it's not about that. Because honestly, the lap or, ED performance issues really occurs much later on. And I tell them it's the fact that when you wake up back to testosterone, your joints don't hurt anymore. Yes, you're stronger. So joints are amazingly improved. You're refocused. You're getting raises at work. You're moving around. You're feeling so great. The last thing we're worried about is ED. Now, when you've had that, we'll treat that. But I think they normally come in and say that. But now that men are actually out talking about it, because I might have been taking it for a really, really long time, or we're talking about right? Like if it was something bad, like we all wear that scarlet letter, but women are the same. And so I think as we have these conversations that it is normal, we had these hormones our entire life, right? Just like when your thyroid goes bad, you give me thyroid.
Yeah.
There's no shame in taking thyroid.
Yeah. And that was something that was never even looked at from my physicians ever, right? They never looked at my vitamin D, which now is stellar.
Stubborn.
They never looked at my progesterone. They never looked at my magnesium. And as a result of the hormone therapy, all of these other little things start to come to play. And it wasn't medication. It was just supplements. It was just something to help you feel better, right? That we're not getting from our food, right?
So think about cost-wise. You talked a little bit about cost. If we can prevent disease and we're not on insulin and all the different medications for insulin resistance and heart disease and blood pressure medications and cholesterol medication. And all we're on is hormones and vitamins, and we're at our natural point with no pharma involved. Wouldn't that long-term, number one, be safer, more cost-effective, and actually not have any side effects of all those other drugs?
Yeah, but then you don't become a moneymaker for pharma. And that's what they're looking for. That's what they're winning for, right? I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine who actually just made an appointment with one of your girls for tomorrow to start her diagnostic. Well, she's going to do the 360. And I'd actually talked to her about this a couple weeks ago. And I said, hey, did you ever make the appointment to, go get your labs in? She says, no, I'm too cheap. I laughed and I said, well, I looked at your closet and I saw those Gucci bags and those Chanel bags and the shoes with the Valentinos. So I know for a fact you're not cheap. You just need to redirect that focus on your health, on yourself, what really matters, right? And she's like, she nodded. And she's, I'm going to call me a moment. And this was just Saturday. So
That's amazing. I mean, think about it. We go to dinner. We went out to dinner last night to one of my favorite restaurants, right? Two of us spent hundreds of dollars, eating a meal.
exactly.
But yet we take that and we say, oh my God, I have to pay $100 in vitamins. And it's funny to me, but I'm like, if you're feeling amazing, right, you're going to spend it one way or another. You're going to spend it later on down the road when you had osteoporosis and you can't walk, or you're having a lot of pain, or you're going to have to get therapy for your arthritis. And this is a country that we should be about prevention. No longer should we wait for people to be in a disease pattern and now use big pharma's drugs that have all these other side effects. If you ever hear those commercials and it rattles out all of those terrible things that can happen to you, you're going to bleed out of your eyeball, But we could have prevented. We should prevent everything in this country. There's no shit that we're at.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're the most innovative country there is, right? Everything comes from the U.S. and then ends up getting duplicated somewhere else, right? Our IP gets taken by another country, but at the end of the day, it all starts here. We can't do that for our health. Of course we can. But again, it's just greed that's pulling our attention in this direction.
Right. I'm going to save that $300 to go get new shoes. Then I'm going to feel better in another month or so.
Yeah. And then those new shoes are still sitting in your closet. You still feel awful.
So awful. Right. So that is a good point. Like, you can keep on those cute heels in your house and go cry in the corner. Or, you put your cute tennis shoes on and go out and enjoy the world. Yeah. And none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So I look at it like we can't keep pushing and kicking the can down the road and go, oh, later on, I'm going to fix myself. Is we don't know when later on is. We need to captivate every day. God doesn't have a plan. Like, God has a plan for us, and we don't know what that end date is. Yep. Right. And so I look at it like I want to spend every moment I can to be active for my children. Right. Well, as mothers, I think all of our love and attention is not only for our man, but for our children. We want to be good role models. We want to show them that we can do it all. Yeah. Which is not easy for women. We bring a lot of pressure on ourselves being a good spouse, a good mom, an entrepreneur, working full time. That's really hard for women. I think we put a lot on us, but when we're feeling good, it makes those little efforts a lot easier.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. And you're not feeling like you're falling short in any of these other areas.
Because we're not perfect, and nor should we be, right? There's always going to be a give and take. But I think women need to take a look back and go, we're doing a great job. Yeah, we really are.
Right. And many times we are not doing that in our own head, right? We're just nitpicking on everything. We laying in bed thinking, God, I should not have said that. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why did I overreact this way? Laying in bed, not sleeping, beating yourself up over and over and over again. Right? And instead, we should be like, I slayed it today.
Yes.
Right? Get a bath today. And we don't do that.
Nope. Like, women come in all the time and say, I can't sleep. And so we talk about progesterone and all the good effects of progesterone. But one of the things they don't understand is, weaponized progesterone is really healthy for you. And it stops at 3 a.m. mind chatter when women wake up and they're like, I can't sleep anymore. I fall asleep, but then I'm like up at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning and I don't feel rested in the morning. That's terrible when you're trying to function the next day.
Yep. Last night I slept so good. I felt my husband kind of wrestling and turn off his spam in the morning. And I opened my house 6:15. I was like, oh, I slept through the night. Oh my God, great feeling, sleep through the night. He's like, what's wrong with you? I wasn't so excited. I was like, Christmas party. Like, it just feels so good. Stick through the night.
So much better than having that fan with those hot flash and the sheets on and off, and I can't sleep. And like, it is, I don't know. I love sleep. And I am this girl that 8 hours of sleep improves mortality of life. Like, I want my 8 hours every night so I could be optimized in the morning and wake up super bush tail and ready to go for that day.
Me too. Absolutely. And I was feeling that, the hot flashes and, of course, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and the restless mind, all that is now gone. And I love it.
So if you had to give some advice to our audience, what would it be?
I would say make your health your priority, right? If you're looking in the mirror and you see someone who looks unhealthy, then you're probably unhealthy and you should do something about it, right? I think beauty is really just, does someone look healthy, right? And on both sides of spectrums, take, for example, Ariana Grande. She's so skinny right now, right? And people were talking about how thin she is. She looks super unhealthy. She's a gorgeous girl, right? But then you have someone on the other side of the spectrum who's really overweight, right? What's that name of that singer that just lost all that weight? He's a country music singer.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about and just saw him.
Jelly Roll. She looks amazing, right? But when he was overweight, he looks super unhealthy, right? And it's not just aesthetically. When you look in the mirror, do I look good today? So you look healthy, right? And I think if you look in the mirror and you don't look healthy, that means you're not feeling healthy. You need to face that. You need to face that head on and you need to do something about it. And so that means going to someone outside of here. Maybe if your physician is giving you what you need, go to a med spa, because med spas are typically the ones that are going to dig a little deeper. You guys did and you still do. And go to a med spa and find that solution. Don't stop at digging. Just keep finding someone who's going to help you. And you can make yourself not only feel better, but, live a better life and make those around you suffer less.
And again, and it's curing all those. We need to take all that pressure off on our heart, on our lungs, on our liver, our kidneys. Like, those are all things that we need to make sure this temple has to stay healthy all the time. And we do. Like, we're so good about taking care about the outside of us, and that inside dictates how long we're going to live and how healthy we're going to be.
Yep. And you have to take care of this vessel, right? You only get one vessel.
Only get one.
Yep. And then you're off to God. And that's it, right? And that's a better place to be than here. Absolutely. Hands down. But while you're living on earth with this vessel, make sure that you're keeping that vessel healthy. And some things will happen that you absolutely don't have any control over. But for those things that you can control, we're going to dedicate time and effort to.
But look, I so excited. I bring tears to my eyes to see your transition. I love to kind of smile at my women when they come in and give them a big hug, because I just know that where they're starting is not where they're going to end. And to see them glowing and lit up time and time again after they're being treated is so unbelievably rewarding, more rewarding than I thought it would be when I used to work in med ER, like to make that impact on even now. And I tell people all the time, like, for me, it's really easy to make them look pretty. It's easy to do fillers, it's easy to do Botox, but to change inside, because that's a journey that the patient has to take with me. You make the choices, right? Are you going to take your supplements? Are you going to take your hormone? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to eat enough protein? That's a journey that you and I have to do. And when you've actually followed through and come in so vibrant and so animated, it's powerful for a woman out there.
And I'm so happy for you. Like, you weren't this person, 10 years ago. You were doing just aesthetics, right? But the fact that God took you on this path to say there's so many women you can help in other ways, and you lashed onto that, and you've really touched so many people, and that's something you can take with you to the grave and be so proud of. When you stand before Him, you'd be like, I did it. I helped all these women. He said, that's exactly why I'm preaching there.
They say when you go, people don't remember a lot of things, but they remember the impact you had on other people's lives. And so if I could do that any time of the day, I would take my, you already did it. Your more analysis. So I'm going to do our final question, and that is, what does beauty need to get?
I would say what I said earlier. It's like if you look in the mirror and you see someone who looks good, and then you probably feel good. You look good, and feel good. But if you look in the mirror, you see somebody who's tired and overweight or underweight, swollen, just then there's something wrong there. And that goes not just for yourself, but if you look around a group of people at a restaurant, you see a bunch of people that really are looking so unhealthy, and that's really where we are, is a lot of unhealthy people. And I'm not just talking aesthetic, I'm talking like biological. When you look at someone's fit, someone's look, man, that person really needs help, and it's really sad sometimes when you take a look around, because that's not where we were 20, 30, 50 years ago. That's not where we were. So if you look in the mirror and you see somebody that's not smiling back at you for all the right reasons, you need to get that beauty check.
So I listened to Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror yesterday. They did a new AI version, and I love it. And it's true. Like when you look at that woman in the mirror, if they don't smile back at you, it's time to make change. Yeah.
Victoria, thank you for coming. Thanks for having me. Powered by Formula Wellness.